Hello, greetings everybody. I want to welcome you here to the channel. My name is Murph. This is Prog Monster, where we talk about progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today it's an episode of What's New, which comes out on Thursdays. For most people who've been following my channel, they know this. I've chosen an album from a group that I've been curious about. They've got quite a bit of stuff. I think they're going to be part of one of my listening things, but they put out an album recently come out. This is Drifting Sun. The album is called Veiled. Came out on March the 22nd, 2024, so very recent, within the last week. It's about 47 minutes in length, which is, a little higher than I like, but for a modern album, that's pretty damn good. Usually, if I can get it under 50 minutes, I'm happy with that. So this album is under that and really good. This is their 8th studio album, so they have been around for a while. I think they originated in the mid or early 90s. Had a period of where they were not active at all. I think that went up until about, maybe it was either 2008 or 2016. One of those two. I'm not really sure why I'm confused about the year, but I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was 2016. Since that time, they've been releasing albums fairly regularly, and this is the newest of those albums. So appearing with this band is Ralph Cardle on guitars, Pat Sanders, he's the main guy in the group, he's the keyboardist, Jargon on vocals, John Jowett, the bass player from IQ, is my inroads here. I was looking around, I saw his name with this group, and I thought, these guys might be something I really like, because he's on that Dark Matter album from IQ, which I really like, and I think he does quite a bit of the IQ discography as well, so I thought maybe there might be a chance this might be something I'm up my alley. And then the last guy, of course, Fudge Smith on drums. I believe he is from Pendragon. I may have confused one of the other members, but I think it's him with the group here. So an excellent album. I've listened to it its entirety. I like just about everything on it. I was not sure what I was going to get here. I thought, sometimes you get these progressive rock bands that are very symphonic, like so dominated by symphonic music that it's not as much appealing to me as some of the more neo-prog stuff earlier on. So their opening track, they've got 2 tracks on this album that are basically instrumentals. They're really short. They're about 2 minutes each. One of them opens the album. I find their music it does have a lot of keyboards. It's very keyboard dominated. There's quite a bit of piano. There's a lot of organ. He does use synthesizers, but I don't find, my mind isn't drifting from it saying, it's too much synthesizers. I'm not getting that at all. I think it's appropriately an appropriate amount of synthesizers, I believe, on the album. The guitar is very good. It's excellent. Both the acoustic and the electric. The electric soloing, I think, is absolutely killer on this album. I think this guy, I don't know if I've heard anything from him before. I believe I have. I'm sure I've heard stuff from him before, but I just think he is really good. He's not over dominating, though. He doesn't take over the album like some guitarists tend to do. But when there's a point where guitars are called for, like the soloing part or some heavy riffing part, he's really right on the money, I think. Very good. The drumming is excellent. Fudge Smith, he's got some nice fills on this album. He's a really upper end type drummer, I think. I find him excellent myself. And the vocalist actually kind of surprised me. I learned something from this vocalist. He's a very mid-range type of vocalist, so he's not really high-end or really deep in voice, kind of in the middle, like a tenor. Might be a little bit of soprano at points in time, but pretty much a tenor-type vocal sound. The thing that amazes me is that he has these qualities throughout the album. I hear this a couple of times. Gives this kind of hint of that Peter Hamill sound, which as soon as I started thinking that, I thought, no, it can't be, because I can't stand Peter Hamill's voice. It really gets on me. But this guy has some of that, but he doesn't have the harshness. It's like he's done away with the harshness. I think it's more the tone or the way in which he sings gives that an inflection of Peter Hamel. It gives you that feeling like it's Peter Hamel, but it doesn't actually have that sound that Peter Hamel, I think, is known for, that harsh, almost screeching part to his vocals. This guy doesn't have that at all, but there's just a hint of it anyways. I did like that from him. I think he's actually kind of good for this album. So anyways, now I'm just going to talk about the tracks a little bit. Now I kind of give you a flavor of the album. I think it's heavier than I thought it was going to be, and pretty dominated by the keyboard instruments. They're the main focus here. The rest of the instruments kind of fit themselves into the parts that they're assigned, I guess, for the music. But overall, a pretty excellent album. Instrumentally, I think they're all quite capable. So the first song is called Veiled. 2-minute song. It's an instrumental entirely, no vocals at all. Starts out with a kind of a keyboard part and piano. It pretty much dominates the track with some very operatic sounds here. I'm not sure if how to explain that. The piano give that kind of operatic feel to it, I think. And then there's some acoustic guitar parts here that I think are tastefully done as well. So this is a decent opening instrumental, and it stops, but it does lead into the next track called Frailty, which I did like a little bit more. This is a longer track. I think maybe the longest track on the album. It's about 12 minutes or so. Opens with a nice keyboard drum part, then gets very strongly progressive. It's moving through different sounds. The vocals are smooth. Again, that mid-range kind of tenor sound. Not too dominating, not too forward, and not too far back. Just actually kind of an appropriate amount, I think, for this song. The organ gives this almost IQ feel to it. That's what I was hoping for. I was hoping that they'd have a little bit of that IQ feel to their music. This was the part that started it for me. This really was the hook that got me into listening to really intently. The keyboard here definitely has that feeling like it's an IQ type album, even though this keyboard doesn't play for them at all. But I felt that in when I was listening to it. He uses the Hammond organ here. The sound is really good. I'm not generally a Hammond organ guy, but if it's used appropriately, I like it. Some people don't use it appropriately. I don't like it at all. And this is the first song where you hear that little bit of hints of that Peter Hamel kind of feel to the music, that vocal part to them. But it's, again, without the harshness. I wouldn't say this is a super heavyweight song, but it's heavier than I was anticipating, so I like it quite a bit. The next song out is called Eros, the Eros and Psyche. I like this song too, maybe a little bit more than Frailty. Nice piano synthesizer opening. They complement each other very well. The vocal bit on this is a little bit more subdued, though. It's not as forward as it was in the previous two tracks, but it's definitely a similar sound, but just it's kind of dialed back a bit, I guess maybe you might want to say. It does get to a point in the song where it jumps up and the song gets much heavier, becomes a much heavier track, and the guitar fill is the part that really adds to that, making it a strong song. So Eros and Psyche. The next track, again, jumping up a little bit more, this was the first track that I really started saying to myself, I think I gotta have this album. This is where it starts, right here. The song is called The Thing. I found myself intently listening to what he was singing and what he was saying on the song. If you're like me, with your prog music, you like it to kind of tell a story. That's why I got into Rush, because Rush is really good at telling stories. Yes, I think tell stories too, but it's so obscure that it's hard to follow the story. But and Genesis is the same. I don't find the stories as easy to read as I do with Rush. These guys, I found myself listening to the story and getting myself into the music as well. The vocals, again, a little bit subdued, but are strong. They're strong. When I say subdued, I mean that he's not in the forward part. He's not dominating the music. He's come back a little bit, but there's still strong vocals here. There's lots of synths on this song. Not all their songs are dominated by synths, but this one has a little bit more than most of them. It's kind of a strange feeling. So you have this kind of progressive sound to their music that's very neo-prog sounding, but at the same time I get a sense of almost a folky sound to their, not folky sound, but a folky direction to their music in this, and that's what I'm feeling on this particular track. And I think a lot of that is because the guitar and the keyboards, especially the solos, are more interactive and more melodic, and they give that kind of feel to the song. The second guitar solo is very detailed and much faster and sped up. Then you have the kind of harmony vocal lead parts on this, which is very folky. I think really adds that folky element to their overall symphonic type sound. And I just found it a very catchy song. The song is called The Thing. The next track out is another 2-minute kind of instrumental. This one pretty much dominated by piano. It's almost a Wakeman, like almost a King Henry the Henry VIII album type keyboard part to it, almost like that. A little bit more cleaned up, a little bit more modernized feeling, but definitely has that strong feel to it. It's also got this kind of a waltzy feel to it as well. Yeah, I found this to be an excellent keyboard part too as well. The next song is called Through the Veil. This is a shorter song. The next 2 or 3 are all pretty much 5 to 6 minutes in length, the last 3 songs. I like them all pretty equally. I think this one is one of the better tracks on the album, Through the Veil. It's got a very keyboard-dominated opening. Also has this kind of heavy but catchy part to it as well. The guitar soloing is really good and pretty dominating in this particular track. I would say it's a clear-sounding song. Most of the album has this kind of a clear feel to it. Like the production is good, but the sound is very clear. I think the vocals maybe a little bit more operatic than some of the other tracks on this particular one, but it starts to drift out nicely as well. Like the whole song, as it gets towards the end, it drifts out nicely. It ends up with this nice kind of subdued, kind of layered out effect. The last 2 tracks, The Old Man, so this track kind of reminds me of something that you would find on Genesis' Wind and the Wuthering. I don't think it would be out of place there, at least the musical part. The vocals don't sound like Phil Collins at all, but the musical part, especially the keyboard part, really has that Wind and Wuthering flavor to it. And the vocals are again kind of a low key, medium, moderate range. Nothing too high, nothing too low. Very clear, no breaking sounds to his voice or anything. He's very smooth voice, I think. This guy has a nice smooth voice as well. Again, dominated by keyboards and organ. The solo on this album is monstrous, though. Like the guitar solo is just absolutely killer. This guy has really brought himself to my attention on this album. I don't even know. I'm going to probably, over the course of the week, I'll start looking up something by him to see if I've heard anything from him before. But he's really good. He's really quite good. And then we end up with the last song called Circus, spelled with a K at the end. Like Cirkus. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, another keyboard opening with some strong play with the rhythm section here. This rhythm section, this is one of the better tracks for the rhythm section on the album. They're much more forward on this particular track than most of the rest of the album, I think. Again, he's got that Peter Hamill voice going again. That I wouldn't say it's, I keep wanting to say it's his voice, but it isn't. It's the mannerisms, the way in which he's singing, coming forward and being sharp on his singing that makes me feel like it's like a Peter Hamill type vocal, even though it has none of that harshness to it at all. And overall, this is a pretty heavy song. Keyboard parts are so good on this that it's like the guy is very strong on this. And overall, I found this a catchy track. So the best songs to me on the album are Through the Veil, Circus, The Thing. Those are the big three for me on the album. All three of them I scored fairly high on them. Not sure which one I would choose. I guess it would depend on my mood. Through the Veil is probably the one I like the most. If a gun was put to my head, that's the one I would choose. So overall, I really like this album quite a bit. It's an album that I after I was done listening to it, I decided, you know what, I don't normally do this because I'm not an online person as far as ordering stuff. I don't like to do it that way. I tend to like to go to the places that I know I can get these of, or I'll go to there's one or two online places. Laser CD is one of the places I like to go to. But these guys were only selling this album via their own YouTube site. And so I decided to order it off them, even though they're British, and I knew it was going to be in pounds, and it's going to cost me, I think it ended up costing me about $32, but I liked it enough to order it. And if I really like it, I may go back and see if I can get some of the other stuff that they've done, find a way of getting it. It's a little pricey, but I allow myself once in a while to spend a little more than I want to, just because you got to try some new stuff that you really like. So there you have it. That's the what's new for the weekend. It's a bit of a longer episode because I quite enjoyed this album. This album, you know, when I do my mid-year top 10 for what's new, this I think is going to be another album that's going to be in there. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. Any comments about the group, the album, or anything I've said, especially if you happen to know if Fudge Smith is actually the drummer for Pendragon, that would be great to know. And please leave your hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any more of this content. And we will see you next week with another album for what's new. Take care, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.